Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. If you're ready to take on your next paying clients, I have good news. My free 4 Basics of Client Attraction and How to Stand Out class is live at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction. In the class, you're going to learn the top 2 traits I recommend for most coaches and entrepreneurs if they really want to turn this into a career. You're going to learn how you can build demand for your services and stop getting crickets on your posts. You're going to learn the sales roadmap I used to improve my sales conversion rate and help my clients do the same. And you're going to learn so much more. So go to haileyrowe.com/client-attraction and get your copy of the class today.
Today's guest is the host of Health Coach Nation, a podcast for health coaches to help them grow and scale their businesses. She works as a marketing, sales strategist, and LinkedIn lead generation service provider and helps service-based business owners, particularly coaches and podcasters, grow their sales, get more time back, and conquer social media overwhelm. She's been named as one of the top 25 coaches in Chicago by Chicago Entrepreneur Magazine and one of the top 6 business podcasts for health coaches by the Primal Health Coach Institute. Her business is underpinned by the philosophy that you can have an amazing service and create impact, but without a strong mindset, sales strategy, and marketing plan, your business will remain a hobby. And I couldn't agree more with that statement. I love it. Hailey Rowe, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Awesome. Well, I really want to get into like the work that you do and understand it a little bit better. Can you tell me more about how you work and how you actually like help health coaches secure more clients and boost visibility?
Yes. So I will share a little bit of my journey with you and also my framework I mainly use with clients and customize to their needs. But I got started in entrepreneurship because, well, from a pretty young age, I started selling fitness DVDs at bridal expos, and I was still in high school at that time. And I knew I wanted to have my own business one day. I got a bunch of different certifications in coaching. I wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to do, but I just knew I wanted to do my own thing at one point. And so I got my bachelor's in entrepreneurship, and then I started to work in the startup world in business development and marketing. And I happened to work for a lot of wellness startups. And I loved it because it was combining my passion for personal development and wellness with business and marketing and sales and learning copywriting. And when you're on a startup team, it's a small team. You are forced to figure things out as you go. And there's no room for overthinking or imposter syndrome or anything like that, because you're just like under the wire to produce results and help the team and do things that you just have to figure out. And so I did that up until about 2017. And one of the wellness companies that I worked for, they were going to face a bunch of delays and not be able to officially launch. And so the entire team was let go in one day. And I used that opportunity. And actually, it was right around this time of year when we're recording this. It was right after Halloween, the day after Halloween. And I used that as my sign that I was ready to have my own business, because I could go into something else and keep working. But I knew that even startups and companies I'd work for, they're not going to have it all figured out either. So I might as well just do what I want to do ultimately, which is have my own business. So I started to work individually with wellness professionals and coaches and service providers. And one thing that I did right at the beginning, which is what we're going to talk about today, is I started a podcast. And that was just because I wanted to interview experts and I wanted an excuse to talk to cool people. And I also realized that within starting your own business, there's a couple key components that you need to put in place to be able to get clients. And I developed one day in the sauna when I was brainstorming what I call my FAST framework, which stands for followers, action, sales, time management, and transformation. And what I mean by that with followers is I work with my clients on determining who they want to work with, who is their target audience, or if they already have that, do they need to refine their message a little bit? Is it landing, that kind of thing? And then we go into what's their lead gen strategies. So For some, it is their podcast. For others, it's partnerships. For others, it's Instagram. But determining their main marketing channel and way of bringing in leads every week. And then the action piece is, how do you create content, messaging, and marketing that's compelling enough that people want to take action? And then there's the sales piece, which is, how do you overcome common objections? What's your sales process? What's your overall business model? And does that make sense? How do you price your offer? What, are the components of your offer? That kind of thing. And then time management is when I work with my clients on their, what to focus on. What is the best use of their time? I work with a lot of moms or people who are transitioning into their business, so they have a day job and they just don't have all the time in the world to do all the things. And so helping them prioritize is a big part of our work we do together. And then the last piece is transformation. And that is making sure that the point A to point B of your offer is clear and differentiated. And then also that you have good testimonials and client wins that you can share in your marketing to make it easier. And then lastly, the personal transformation required to get to your business goals. So some of my clients sometimes have to face fears of being on video, or learn that they may think, oh, I dread marketing, I hate marketing. They might have to change their mindset around marketing or things like that. So sometimes that comes up and we work through those obstacles.
I love the proactive nature that you've implemented just throughout your career, from selling those DVDs to all the way to 2017 and deciding to take your future into your own hands. That's fantastic. So obviously you mentioned there that you did start Health Coach Nation in 2017. How do you think the health coaching landscape has changed since you launched the podcast since that time?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I would say one of the biggest changes that I've seen in health coaching, a couple things. One, 2020 really put online health coaching, I believe, on the map. Before that, it was something where people were like really uneducated about what it is. Maybe we're not seeking it out as much. And then I found when 2020 happened, people were home more, people were worried about health, this started to just become something that became a lot more popular. And what I have also seen change is so many health coaches now understand the importance of, in online marketing, having components that make them stand out, like having a specific niche, sharing their story, and being able to have an actual program. I think it used to be more just like, oh, just sell single sessions and, charge the industry average and that's it. But nowadays, I see so many health coaches really personalizing a program or a framework or, their own thing that allows them to not just be a commodity and actually be able to charge more for their services. And I also see an increase in demand for like alternative medicine, functional health, like holistic approaches. And part of that, I think, is like Instagram and TikTok and like those social media influencers. And the other part of that, I think, is just people are fed up with being gaslit by their doctor sometimes or things like that. So those are some of the shifts that I've seen.
Yeah, I definitely feel that as well with podcasting, a similar situation. Obviously, as there was an explosion in 2020. It's a great time to be a health coach, I suppose, but also a lot more competition probably entering the market as well. And you put out quite a few episodes. I would love to know, what are your top 3 most downloaded podcast episodes, and why do you think that they've been so successful?
Definitely. So the first one is one of my oldest episodes, which is probably also contributing to why it's one of the most downloaded, because it's been around the longest, and the longer your content sits there, the more it gets better SEO ranking and whatnot. So the first one is Hacking Fear and Productivity. That was an interview I did with Mike Schnezniak or something. His last name's very hard to pronounce, but we were talking about fear as an entrepreneur and how that paralyzes you and how that causes you to procrastinate, and how do you not let the fear hold you back. So I think that was relevant to my target audience because a lot of them are new to entrepreneurship and they do have certain fears. The second most popular episode was Starting Your Coaching Business at 40. And the reason for that one is I work with a lot of women who are 40 and up, honestly. And it's a very small percentage of my audience that's below 40. And I think a lot of my clients are at that stage of life where they want to do something for them, or they want to contribute to their family, or they're empty nesters now, and now it's time for them to do something they love. And so they get their certification, and then they're like, wait a minute, now I have to become an entrepreneur and learn marketing and sales. And so, and they, sometimes feel like, oh, it's so late for me. I'm over 40. And they have that limitation of like, oh, I'm too old for this. So that episode kind of addressed that. And then the last one was an episode I did with Jamie Morocco, who is a very successful health coach. And that one was called Multiple Six-Figure Health Coaching Business, because I wanted to interview someone to show proof that you can do this. This can be your full-time business. And I think a lot of people are in disbelief that that's possible. And so I brought Jamie on the show to talk about her journey and building her business. And she's really raw and real about what it takes, and that it's not for everyone and it's not an easy path. But I think it was popular because that is focused on, when we talk about in marketing, the importance of focusing on the dream outcomes of your ideal clients. And my clients a lot of times want a full-time coaching business. And so having an episode about that with someone who's done that was probably interesting to my audience.
Interesting spread of topics. And I love the fact that I like that last one you mentioned with Jamie Morocco, because I completely understand why some people might be skeptical about the earning potential that can be made online, just because there are a lot of like marketing bros out there that will tell you you can make $1 million in your first year if you follow all their tricks. So it's cool when you're actually able to like showcase real success stories from people that have actually done it, have been where I'm sure your audience have been, and then gotten to the place where their dreams are or they're aspire to get to. How do you pick your topics? Like, how do you decide on what you're going to cover for each episode or even each guest?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I do is I have 4 pillars that my podcast covers, and that is marketing, sales, time management, or mindset. And when I'm coming up with topic ideas, what I like to do is organize the key frequently asked questions, objections, challenges, goals, excuses, limitations, things like that, opinions that I have about these topics. And I put under each pillar a brainstorm of those types of things, those types of prompts. So I might have under like time management, one topic might be how to juggle starting your coaching business while being a mom or homeschooling your kids or having a day job or something like that, because that would be an obstacle my people deal with. So I'll organize that, and then I'll kind of go through and look at which of these do I hear the most from my audience on discovery calls or in my posts when they post questions or things like that, or with my clients, which things are coming up the most. You can always use your clients for inspiration. And then from there, I prioritize like the topics and who I want to interview and that kind of thing. So now the other thing is, though, I think some people just have to get started and let it be messy, because they're in the beginning. My podcast has gone through a rebrand, not a total rebrand, but it used to be called the Hailey Rowe Show, number 1, which was a dumb choice, because why would I not put keywords in the title? And nobody cares about Hailey Rowe. They care about their goals, right? So renamed it. But in the beginning, a lot of it was heavily focused on habits and business habits that you need, and, just time management instead of marketing and sales and things like that. So it's kind of evolved over time. And sometimes I think you just need to get started and get it out there, and then your message will start to become more clear. And every interview I have is not, it's not always like totally perfect with the title and the keywords and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing that I'll share is you have to decide what priority is your podcast to your brand and business. My podcast is a repurposing channel, surprisingly. Like, it hasn't been like, oh my God, the podcast is the thing that I'm going to monetize and I'm going to have ads on it and blah, blah, blah. It's more like, I'm going to go live on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, and I might as well use these things on a podcast and repurpose them. And that's kind of what it is. So my audio is not perfect. The editing is not amazing, but that's kind of the deal I made with myself to be consistent with it. that had to happen, because before that I was like, no, it has to be perfect. I was editing everything, and I was just taking forever, and I was really inconsistent, which is you can't do if you want a successful podcast. So that's one thing I would share when you're trying to plan your content, is if you're being such a perfectionist about it that you're like not even doing it, or you're spending 3 hours editing it, then maybe just start.
Yeah, I like this idea that of like learning on the job, like learning as you go. And you did mention that you went through this rebrand. You obviously changed like the topics, you changed your focus. What was the impetus for that? Was there something like you got feedback from your listeners, or did you hire someone that gave you feedback? What encouraged you to make these changes?
What encouraged me to make the changes was two things. One, I was evolving as a business owner, meaning I was helping my clients with more and more results and more things with their marketing and their sales. And so I felt more confident bringing that more into my podcast. Before, I didn't feel that confident because I was just starting out, and I wanted to make my message be where I was at. So that was part of it. And then the other part of it was listening to my audience and my feedback I was getting in my market research, and hearing that, they struggle with X, Y, and Z, or whatever. So I would say it's a combination. And then also the other thing that kind of evolved was like I started to get a clearer idea on what kind of guests were a fit for the show and what kind of guests maybe weren't. And so I think that also helped.
You mentioned there about like feedback market research. How did you conduct that, or was it inbound? Did they just like reach out to you for this?
I conducted market research by just posting that I was going to do some interviews. And I also would look around in forums and places where my people were posting and asking questions and sharing obstacles. So I would kind of pick up on common things I was seeing. And then I also would get it from clients all the time, because when I was working with private clients, really hands-on, every day I'm getting new feedback about what they're struggling with, what their questions are, things like that.
Okay, cool. I really love what you mentioned earlier about not letting perfectionism get in the way of like publishing and putting out content. Do you have any other advice that you would give to health coaches who are looking to use a podcast? Maybe they are looking to get into it for the first time, or maybe they do have a podcast currently and they feel like they're not using it to their full potential. What advice would you give them?
Yeah. Couple things. One, if you're going to do a podcast, try to use it as like a content bank for yourself. So in other words, if you get a common FAQ or objection about your offer all the time, if you have a podcast on that, it's a timeless thing that you can always refer back to when that comes up on a discovery call, or when that comes up in your email, someone asks. It's a great way to kind of scale replying to certain things. And I think that's one of the most useful ways to use your podcast, is like, I know this question is going to come up a million times, or I know that this objection is going to come up a million times. And so I'm going to make a podcast about it so I can just keep reusing it. The other thing is leveraging guests. Okay. So if it's one thing if you choose as your strategy to have solo episodes, and I think that's great. But if you have guests on there that have an audience and they're willing to share the podcast with their audience, it's a great way to grow your audience. So I would put in a practice where after the show, you maybe email the guests, you let them know their episode's live, you maybe provide a couple posts if you can, that would make it easy for them to share, because every week now you're going to get in front of a new audience if they share it. So that would be one piece of advice. And then I think the other thing, if you're looking to scale your podcast, is to just make sure that, like, if you're ever stuck on, I don't have an email to email my list, or I don't have content, you can always pull from your podcast, and that could be your main thing you repurpose from if needed.
Yeah, I've found that podcasts are like the best thing to use when it comes to repurposing content. You can make so much out of that, from blogs to social media. And on the topic of social media, I'd love to hear what you think the role of social media plays in growing a health coaching business, and a podcast for that matter. And how should these coaches approach their social media?
Yeah. So I actually do have a free cheat sheet and training on this, which is called the 4 Steps of Client Attraction. It's at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction. And the reason I bring it up is because I think most coaches rely so much on posting and hoping to be discovered instead of doing the 4 steps, which are connect, engage, pre-offer, and sell. And what I mean by that is you want to use social media to connect, get in front of your ideal clients. So decide who that is and how you're going to find them. Engage, which means asking them questions to find out what's useful to them. What do they want? What kind of content do they want to see? What kind of freebies would they find valuable? Then give a pre-offer, which is your free offer, your freebie, your lead magnet, something that you can start gathering email addresses for in exchange of giving a free gift that's useful to someone. And then in your email sequence or in your follow-ups, having an invitation to your sales process. And these 4 steps, I go into more detail, obviously, in the training, but the thing I think a lot of people miss out on is the engaging and pre-offer step, meaning, yeah, they're connecting, they're being visible on social media, they're posting, but they're never personally acknowledging their followers. They're never doing a collab with someone on social media where they're getting in front of both people's audiences. They're never sharing their lead magnet personally as a thank you gift for following them or something like that. So there's just things you can be doing to use social media smarter and more on a more personal level and a relationship building level that I think people miss out on because they're just so focused on the posting part.
Yeah, I have to say I've seen your posts on LinkedIn and you do a great job of that on there.
Oh, thank you.
You do, yeah, you do some great posts. And obviously this takes a lot of time putting out content, and most health coaches will be putting out a lot of content like newsletters, social media posts, blog posts, lead magnets, like you mentioned there, to build up their audience. But how can health coaches balance offering this free content with promoting paid services without like undervaluing the work they're putting out?
Yeah. Well, so how can they promote their free stuff and their paid stuff in a balance?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think a couple things. One, when your free stuff can lead to your paid stuff. So if you don't have an email funnel or you don't have, like, let's say you're going to host a free class, but within the free class, there's no section where you give a call to action, either like book a call with you or promote your course or whatever it is. You can have both together. You can give value and then tie in. And if you're looking to go to the next steps, here's the gaps that's missing from this. And here's how we can help you in the offer. I think a lot of people also struggle to, when they're giving free stuff, they think more is better instead of more tangible and more micro and more like doable today, which is better, right? Like you want your free stuff to be something someone can digest and do right now. And then you say, okay, and if you want all these other things, the whole piece of the whole pie instead of just a piece of the pie, here's how we work together. So I think that's a really important thing that people miss out on, because it is way more valuable to give somebody a micro win or micro result that's quick and easy and digestible, and then tie in how your offer helps them with the holistic bigger picture that they're also wanting. And then I think the last thing is, like, people get worried that if I mention my offer more than once, I'm being too salesy. And most people are not paying attention at all. Okay. So they need to hear your offer and what you do like 7 to 77 times before it really registers. So if in every episode of your podcast, you don't have a little ad that's like, this podcast is sponsored by my program, insert your program, what it is, whatever, then that's a missed opportunity right there. Or if you never mention your freebie in the episodes, like if you're talking about a specific topic and somehow your freebie relates to that and you don't tie it in, that's another missed opportunity. So I think that we have to acknowledge that, yes, we're going to be giving value regularly, lots of free content. And so it's natural to tie in a casual, it doesn't always have to be a whole, usually it's short. It's usually can be very casual. Like I referenced my 4 Steps of Client Attraction class when we were talking about one of your questions, because it was super natural to bring it up because it related to the question. So I think that's how we have to do it. And you may have specific, like maybe 1 out of every 5 podcast episodes is a more salesy, like objection busting type of episode. And then the rest are value based, but you tie in your freebie or you tie in what you do in some way. I think that's a fair balance. And I think a lot of people overthink that or think, oh no, but there's probably people who want to listen to that to learn about what you do, because if they don't know, they may go to someone else, or they may be like, oh, I didn't realize you even did that.
That makes sense. We also offer, like here at Podwritten, we offer interview coaching for when our clients do go on podcasts. And I have to say, you've nailed a lot of them. You've done a great job in this interview. And I was going to draw back to that cheat sheet. Like you very naturally and organically brought it up. That's a great example, I think. And I'd love to include the cheat sheet in the show notes. So I'll get that from you afterwards and include that. But really, my last question to you, I want to know, like, what are you focusing on next? Like, what are you going to do to take Health Coach Nation to the next level and your business for that matter?
Well, can I just add one more thing I just thought of for your other question?
Yeah, certainly.
About the balancing sales? A really fun way to sell without being salesy is to interview your clients and have an interview with your client where you're asking about their journey, what advice would they have to other people, things like that, that it's inspiring, it's fun, it's value giving, but it's also your client sharing their journey, which helps your program or your whatever you're selling. So that could be another really nice, and surprisingly, those episodes do quite well on I always thought, oh, episodes are not going to get many listens because it's more about my program and their journey in my program and whatever. But actually, people love hearing those. And I hear on discovery calls a lot of times like, oh, I listened to that podcast with so-and-so and I want to do what they're doing. And, so it's kind of a fun, inspiring thing. But to answer your other question about what I'm working on now, I am growing my newer Facebook community called the Marketing Hub, which is a free networking and business growth community, because my old one sadly got hacked.
Oh,
and so it's been a while, and I've been slowly getting back into the groove of my new community. But that's been one thing I've been doing. I also have been having a lot of fun teaching people about how to go from crickets to clients with their freebie funnel. I'm very big on having a freebie that's really good, and then having a funnel that's also really good. So been talking about that a lot. I have like a free live event replay that I've been promoting, and that's at haileyrowe.com/live event if we want to share that. But other than that, I'm just coaching my clients. I'm doing all the same things and pretty much trying to keep it focused and boring for me so that I just don't get shiny object syndrome and go all over the place.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot to get distracted by in this industry, working in this business. Obviously, you're quite active on social media. Where are the best places that people can find you? I'm going to include links to the stuff that you mentioned, previously in the show. But is there anywhere that people can go specifically to find out more about your work, or just keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, so I have the Health Coach Nation podcast, which will be exciting to have you as a guest as well. I have Hailey_Rowe. That's my Instagram username. It's HAILEY_ROWE. And then HaileyRowe.com is where I have a lot of free gifts and more information, things like that.
Fantastic. Excellent. Yep. Well, there'll be links in the show notes. And Hailey, thank you for joining me today. It's great to hear your insights as someone that's really making a difference in the lives of health coaches.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.